We are live here with Heavy Muscle Radio. We're doing a special tribute to the late, great Mr. Olympia Shawn Rhoden today. And, of course, I have my compatriot in crime here, Chris Aceto, on this October 8th, 2021 evening. And, Chris, I felt we should do it live so we can get the sheer emotionality of what's going on. I mean, we kid around. We don't really kid, but we say every week that, I can't believe we're reporting another death. And, in a million years, I don't think I would have picked Shawn Rhoden's name as a person to be on that list of people who have passed. And a lot of people took this very, very hard. I had Chris Psycho Lewis on the phone with me. He was hysterically crying. He was trying to, confirm that it was real, and he couldn't believe it. And what was your initial response when you first heard it?
You want the raw answer?
Yeah, of course.
Not surprised.
No, really.
Not surprised one bit.
And why do you say that?
Because I've been saying, if you listen to the show carefully, for 3 years, I've been saying things like when you ask me, or people around the country, they say, "How does Shawn hold up?" And no one holds up under the circumstances that he's been under. No one holds up. So my expectation for someone else, any other good bodybuilder, any other person, any other individual, I would expect that having your livelihood taken away.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about that. Having your livelihood taken away. Shawn won $400,000 at the Mr. Olympia.
In 18.
Had a incredibly impressive contract in 18 from winning that show. Worked his whole life to win that title. And that was taken away with a phone call.
Yeah, one accusation and then one indictment, yeah. And
the entire industry turned its back. So am I surprised? No. Because the people who, David Pecker who makes his living off, hiding in bushes and taking pictures of Dave Palumbo as he cheats on his wife coming out of, the Hilton Hotel.
Right.
With the National Enquirer, who owned the Mr. Olympia at the time, never made a phone call to Shawn Rhoden. And people see Shawn Rhoden around the country. They see someone outwardly, myself included, but I know the inside. They see him happy. They see him congenial. They see him at the Olympia every year supporting the other athletes, which is genuine, actually. But that lack of support, everyone turning on him, that the idea of taking away his ability to make a living took a toll, helped shape where he got himself to. And as I said on the show, and as I would say to people who are very close to me, most people would have lost their minds, and I mean that. Or they would have went and chose, we would have heard, he's a drunk now. He's on coke now. He's a meth head.
Right.
He's addicted to heroin or perks. But not Shawn, because mentally, that's how he got to the Olympia. He got to the Olympia with his genetics, but what was above his shoulders with his head. That's how he got there.
Right.
With an incredibly level head. But Dave, those things, even with that head, that stress, something's got to explode, whether it be your mental, people go crazy because it's a convenient way to go into a complete set of denial.
I mean, he had but Chris, he had an ulcer before we even had any of this drama go down. I mean, so he was already internalizing a lot of stress, in his life. So,
but those are nothing compared to Dave.
I know. I
remember in 1980.
Imagine though. I mean, he had a stomach ulcer and he didn't even have any real stress. I mean, now No, you got to remember, you're mentioning the fact that he wasn't able to compete for 3 years, which was obviously devastating to him. But what about the fact that he was facing, real jail time if he was convicted?
I haven't even got to that.
Yeah.
But I'll say
that's the real stress.
Well, you know what? Not really. Starting one, Dave. I mean, you know what? The only time I ever saw my father cry, he was sitting on the front steps of my house. I came home from school. I couldn't believe it. I thought someone died. He couldn't get a job. He didn't really have any skills in the work that he'd had for like 25 years. He had lost his job. 1980 was, I think Ronald Reagan was elected to president. The economy was in the shitter, and he couldn't get a job. So he couldn't provide. He couldn't provide for 5 kids, let alone himself. So his livelihood was gone. So you can't, you can't discount.
Oh, I'm not discounting. I'm just saying there's another level of stress there that he was facing and could have gone to jail. I mean, that's never see his family. I mean, that's worse.
Well, that's Dave. That's the other part of like, it brings me. Thank you, because it brings me to this. If I told Dave Palumbo, Dave, you know what? I heard Dave Palumbo accidentally, he drove over a little kid at the playground. He killed a little kid by accident. He's going to go to jail for 20 years. And you're never going to see your 3 little kids and your wife. Ever.
Right.
You would either, you know what, Dave? You would either go into the jail and pick up some religious book and read it 1 million times so that you don't go crazy.
Right.
Or you would go crazy. Or you may choose to kill yourself, or you may have a heart attack of a broken heart.
Mm-hmm.
So, the elephant in the room here, of course, outside of this all is anabolics. But the other, you cannot, and that is something that has to be discussed at some point, in lieu of, just where the sport is. But having said that, I came on this show for 3 years sounding like a bloviating woke idiot, screaming at the top of my lungs of the injustice of Shawn Rhoden not being able to compete as a bodybuilder, not being able to do his, participate in, do his passion, do what he loves. That's what Dave Palumbo always talks about. Do what you love. And you can't do it when you can't do what you love. And you're the best at the world at it, it's akin to having a broken heart. You can't do what you love. And not only that, you can't even make any money. So all those things add to it,
Yeah. The thing I think that was the injustice was that I understand when it first came out, it was a very big story, of course. And AMI overreacted, obviously, to it. But it was, the guy was indicted. So, there had to be a response. Once the first year went by and nothing was going on, I mean, at that point, I would imagine they should have sat down and said, hey, look, let's figure out how to make this thing work, because this guy obviously is not considered public enemy number one, or they would have tried him by now. You know what I mean? COVID was going on. They should have allowed him to compete after that first year, at least, until the trial was over. But but I think what the thing we have to really come to grips with was that whether it was the stress of not being able to compete and earn a living for yourself, or the fact that there was a trial looming over his head, or the fact that Shawn internalized all his stress for his whole life, or the fact that he was a bodybuilder who was carrying around a considerable amount of size, and the fact that he took anabolic, and there was COVID present in this whole equation. I just think there were too many variables that were working against him. And I don't think you could. People ask me, did he commit suicide? No. Was the steroids causing him to have a heart attack? No. I think it was the accumulation of everything that created just too many negative risk factors. And like you said, something's got to give. Something's got to give. It's either got to come out or it's going to go in. And I think he imploded, essentially, is really what happened. I mean, it sounds,
yeah,
it sounds very metaphorical, but it's not in the end. I mean, it's almost reasonable. I mean, people die of stress, heart attacks all the time.
Well, Dave, that's why I said when I found out, were you surprised? Not at all.
Yeah.
Because I can't, I just can't. People stress out over stupid stuff.
Yeah. People
stress out over minor stuff. People stress out over big stuff. You can't, that's why I use the metaphor of Dave Palumbo can never see what he loves most in his life again. What happened to him? He killed himself. What happened to him? He had a heart attack. He had a broken heart. He couldn't see his wife and 3 kids ever again. Bodybuilding was in Shawn's DNA. And that's why even when he couldn't compete, you'd see him at the Olympia. You'd see him. I just ran into him at the Reno show. You'd see him at all kinds of shows where he couldn't get on stage, but he could be around other bodybuilders, and that was his love. So when you're at the pinnacle of pinnacles, and it did not come easy to win Mr. Olympia. No. When you're at the pinnacle of pinnacles, and the National Enquirer tells you cannot compete anymore, and the organization does not have your back, full stop, it creates a lot of stress.
Right.
And you go from making real money, and Shawn was not in bodybuilding to make money. He was not in it for the money. He was
he loved the sport. He loved the sport.
He loved the sport. The money, when it came,
he was secondary to the whole process.
That's right, which is why he got to where he was. Because if you're doing it for the money, you can't get to the top.
No. I don't think any of us lunatics do bodybuilding for the money.
Well,
it's nice to make money, while you're doing it. But
some people at that
no
level
one starts
are
out, Chris, doing bodybuilding for the money because there is no money.
So, when that's taken away, your passion is taken away. And your money is taken away. And that's why I use, to reiterate the analogy, the only time seeing my father cry was he couldn't make any money. 1980. Unemployment rate was like, interest rates are 20%. You want to buy a house, it's 20%. Now it's 2%, 3%. So imagine the different times. So the stress load.
Sure. But, we have to come also, people keep asking me, and I'm going to do a video this week, and I'm going to have a lot of experts on this week as well. So we have a very busy week of programming on RX Muscle. We have a tribute show scheduled for Shawn as well. And they keep asking me, why are all these bodybuilders dying in the last 2 years? I mean, the list, you can't deny it, Chris. It's like every week we're talking about another person, and one more high profile than the next. And look, the only common denominator that I can tell you is COVID and the vaccine. Okay. I'm not saying bodybuilding isn't dangerous. I'm not saying the drugs people take and the size they walk around and the high blood pressure, and in Shawn's case, the stress that was on top of him, in other people's, John Meadows' case, the predisposed, heart condition he had or clotting issue he had. Everyone had their own problem. But superimpose COVID and or the vaccine, because the vaccine simulates COVID, essentially, when you take the vaccine. So if you have a predisposition for clots or problems, it can be caused by the vaccine as well as it can be caused by COVID. That's the common denominator that's here in the last 2 years. Okay, it's pretty obvious. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to put your finger on it. Now, what could you do about this? And did that result in Shawn's death? I don't know. I understand he had some heart and lung issues a few months ago, and I don't really know the exact details, but I'm just repeating what I've heard. But I mean, did you hear that? Was he in the hospital a couple months ago?
Yeah, he was. I heard he had told me he had heart issues. Maybe I think it was 6 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, so
but he explained it to me as stress, and that's why Dave, when I found out, no, I was not surprised.
Did he have COVID at one point? Did he get it?
I don't think so.
Okay, I didn't know. I don't know if he got vaccinated, and that I didn't know, but I thought maybe he had COVID. But the point is that there is a common denominator here, and there's a lot of things that bodybuilders are going to have to come to grips with and prepare themselves for if they're going to continue doing what they're doing in these times that we're living in with vaccines and that are not proven.
Well, Dave, let me just put a hammer on this. Okay. I won't speculate about the anabolics. Period. Full stop.
Yeah.
but I'm not going to speculate because it's a fact. It's a fact that, starting with David Pecker right on down, couldn't compete, took his, David Pecker in 2 seconds pulled the fucking plug on him.
Yeah.
In 2 seconds, didn't even call him. Did not even call him to say anything. Is it true? Is it not true? Right. Boom, like a little weasel. And that got the ball rolling. And
very cowardly, very cowardly thing.
You know what? If you can't, and that got the, well, if you can't compete, we can't sponsor you. I mean, the guy's going to certifiably BROKE. And you know what? People talk about that stress. So when I get the call that he had a heart attack, was I surprised? Unfortunately, no. I mean, how much can one person handle?
Sure. And he's not 20, and he's not 25 years old, Chris. He's not 25 years old, either.
His face showed up with a Ramy face on the Arnold Classic poster, remember?
Yeah.
You go, Chris, I'm in the show. I'm not in the show.
Yeah.
Think about that. I'm back. What? I'm not back? I thought I was back. I'm on the poster.
Yeah, it was
the wishy-washiness of it all is just fucking stupid.
There was a lot working against Shawn for sure, and I have to believe that stress definitely added to the whole process. I'm not taking away the other factors as well. Obviously, look, the guy was close to 300 pounds. He's 46 years old. He had some heart issues that obviously made it worse.
Ashley, but stress. Look at people in their comments, Dave. The fucking people in their moronic.
Yeah,
Aceto owes us an explanation. Just people are morons. Shouldn't.
Look, you know what? We don't know what caused it. Okay, that's the bottom line. There's no.
Well, no one will be able
to prove it.
Listen, my point is this: was steroids a contributing factor? Absolutely yes, because they are a factor for every single marker for heart disease. Yeah. So if that is a known.
Sure.
So if people want to run down that rabbit hole, test everyone all year. The money's there. Money's there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if people want to make that use this as a point of entry into, what are we going to do about it? Well, do something about it.
The irony would be that Rhoden would have still been Mr. Olympia, probably.
Well, that's
he was a great natural bodybuilder, right?
The irony is, we'll do a tribute show. And you can ask people, my God, what Shawn Rhoden used compared to what people who are using in the classic physique, in the men's board shorts. Shawn Rhoden, was a genetic, I wouldn't say wonder, but Shawn Rhoden had it, and he had it from mentally, and he had it, the work ethic, and that's what allowed him to not only actualize his success as a bodybuilder, but to be able to some degree, for a limited time, withstand the monumental amount of stress.
Yeah.
I mean, people lose shows in their nut jobs.
Look,
they go into depression. I mean, you lose pro shows. I know somebody in a pro show this weekend who had a breakdown, didn't do well.
Yeah.
And Shawn Rhoden is like, under the burden of like, geez, can I borrow some money?
Yeah, that's sad that it got to that point. Let me look at Cali Muscle. Cali Muscle just revealed that he had a heart attack. He had 100% blockage in his coronary arteries. He didn't even know it. You know what? I tell people this all the time. You're crazy if you don't go for a cardiac CT scan. They're cheap now. You can see if your blood vessels are blocked. I mean, that's the number one reason why people die of heart attacks, a blocked vessel. He didn't even know he had 100% blockage, not 90%. He had 100% blockage. So there was obviously collateral circulation, but he'd been suffering. He didn't even know it. He was probably having little minor heart attacks leading up to this. Thank God they caught it and he lived and they stented him. I mean, it's not a big deal, guys. You got to get your health checked. I mean, you're nuts if you don't. There's no reason why, in this modern age with all the diagnostic tests that we have, that people are not going out there and doing their health checks. I mean, I work with a lot of people, and I have people just contact me all the time and ask me, what health checks? Get your blood work done. Get all your values. But blood work won't tell you if you have a blockage. It also won't tell you.
I got news, Dave, on the fucking blood work bullshit. You're a bodybuilder, you get your blood work, doesn't mean nothing.
No.
Other than, it doesn't mean anything.
Other than kidney function, you're really not finding out anything.
Quote me today. Quote me today. When you're a bodybuilder and you get blood work, you will know nothing from it. And neither will your doctor. It's all speculation and unknowns, because your blood work could be crazy and you could be healthy, or it could be actually not too crazy and you could be up the shitter.
That's why it's important to get someone who knows how to read the blood work for a bodybuilder. That's why I have a lot of people sending me their blood work on a daily basis, because there are certain things, like you said, that you shouldn't be concerned about, like liver enzymes, because most of the liver enzymes are just high because people are working out. It's metabolic enzymes. And then there's other stuff like kidney function, like creatinine. If it's high, you could be in, you could have kidney issues. Obviously, hormonal levels we check on blood work. But the bottom line is, if you want to see if you have a healthy heart, take your blood pressure every day, buy a blood pressure cuff, go get a cardiac CT scan to see if your coronary arteries are open, and get an echocardiogram every year, which is going to tell you about your heart function and how it's pumping blood, to the rest of your body, and see if it's functioning properly. Those are 3 easy tests. Go buy a blood sugar monitor for $10 at Walmart and see if your blood sugars are good. Your fasting blood sugar should be under 90 in the morning. This way you can kind of circumvent ever getting diabetes, or at least address it if you have blood sugar issues. These are just easy things you can do on a daily basis that will prevent you from having sudden death. Okay. Now, if you blow a blood vessel in your brain because you have an aneurysm, there's nothing you can do about that. You get COVID and you throw a clot, okay, a month after you have it. Look what happened to the guy Sister Nino. He had a blood clot in his leg 3 months after he had COVID. It was COVID induced, but he didn't even know. You could take, essential fatty acids like my Omega-Lyze product. I almost bled to death, Chris, getting my shoulder replaced because I didn't stop it 2 weeks before. I stopped it 6 days before. They're very good anticoagulants. I mean, for a bodybuilder that has high red blood cell count, you should be taking something that inhibits clotting. And I'm not really a big aspirin fan, but you could take, a high potency fish oil supplement, and that is probably better than a small baby aspirin per day. Very simple, very simple. Take your chelated zinc supplements every day, so that if you did get COVID, it would reduce the length of the infection. Take your vitamin C every day to keep your immune system good. If you have access to injectable glutathione, that's going to help boost your immune system. There's just little things you can do that are going to help benefit, your health. So you're not going to have these crises. Be aware of what's going on. Had I never gone for a cardiac CT scan, I wouldn't have known that my vessels were clear, but I wouldn't have ever found the fact that I had an enlarged aorta. I didn't even know about. And if I didn't find out about the enlarged aorta and follow up on that, I wouldn't have found the nodule in my thyroid that wound up being thyroid cancer. So you got to do your diagnostic tests, especially when you're over the age of 35, 40, because that's when things start to go wrong. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't do them when you're younger. It just means that, us older guys are going to, wind up having more problems. But nowadays, bodybuilders are competing into their late 40s, early 50s now. Shawn was 46. You got to do the diagnostic test. Don't put your head in the sand and say, I don't want to know. It's very foolish. There's no reason why people should be dying of things that are avoidable. If Dallas McCarver had gone for a cardiac CT scan after he had problems in Australia at the Australian Grand Prix, he would be alive today. So, I mean, how many lessons do we need to learn here? Yes, we're in a time period where we're having a lot of deaths from God knows what. Is COVID causing it? Is the vaccine? I don't know. But you know what? It seems very coincidental that we're starting to see more people dropping, okay, for no reason. So be on top of your health. That's the take-home message. It's not hard. It's not hard. These are not expensive things, and these are not time-consuming tests. Just do them. Get it. It's like brushing your teeth, I don't understand people. I mean, that's all I could say. You know, it's a terrible, terrible loss that we lost Shawn. And I don't know what his medical status was, but you know what? Sometimes people just die, because they have problems. And I'm sure the tremendous level of stress that he was under, like you said, was a major contributing factor. I'm not saying it was the only factor. I don't want to hear these people on the board saying, oh, it's steroid. It was a major contributing factor. It wasn't the final straw, but it was a major contributing factor. I agree with you, Chris.
I say it's a final straw, dude. Yeah, I'm on the record for everywhere.
Yeah.
If that wasn't, then testipionate was. Well, which one is it?
Yeah.
Half the people on Instagram are on testipionate.
The problem is this is not going to be the last name that we announce. You know why? Because we've announced the name every week, unfortunately. And I don't want to see any more of our Iron brothers and sisters passing unnecessarily, guys. Please take what I'm saying. I'm saying it from the heart. I really am. A lot of this stuff is avoidable. Okay. Go get your diagnostic test done. Don't be dummies, especially if you're taking anabolic steroids, because if you are, you have an increased risk factor. You've increased your red blood cell count. Okay. High red blood cells doesn't mean you're going to clot, because you have to have high platelets to clot. But when you are exposed to something like COVID or maybe the vaccine, which increases the likelihood of clots, okay, now having more red blood cells in your body, it can be a precipitating or a deleterious side effect. So in that case, you might want to go donate some blood. You want to take something that's going to prevent your blood from clotting, like a high potency fish oil supplement on a regular basis. Okay, at least 3 grams a day. These things will help avoid these disastrous side effects that are associated with what's going on in our daily lives at this point. You can think I'm full of shit all you want, John A. Okay,
yeah, that's what I do.
But you know what? When I save your fucking life, you'll be fucking kissing my feet and telling me, and telling me thank you. Okay, I'm not wasting anyone's time here. This is valuable information that people need to hear repetitively, because it doesn't sink in, evidently. So, all right, we're gonna do a big tribute show on Tuesday to Shawn Rhoden, and we're gonna have a lot of his friends come on and talk about their experiences, their personal experiences with Shawn, and hopefully make it a show where people feel good after it's over, not depressed. And I'm sure there'll be some crying, and I'm sure there'll be some sadness there, but I want to celebrate his life. He deserves it. I mean, the guy gave his life for the sport, really. I mean, if you think about it, Chris.
Well, he gave it, I'm not going to stop, Dave. He gave it, and the sport didn't support him when he needed the sport. If you ask, I said this a long time ago. I said this to Dan Solomon. I said, Dan, find me. Let me just tell you this. Where's the second girl that because rapists are always second. They that's what they do, right? Thieves steal. They do it. When they get arrested by the cops, they say, "Oh, the first time I ever shoplifted in my life. I just happened to get caught this time." And I asked him as well, you find me one person in this sport, one who finds something negative to say about Shawn Rhoden. You can find people who say negative things about me. You can find people who say negative things about Dave Palumbo. You can find people who say negative things about Phil, about Dexter. You can find, you can find someone. You can find many people that say negative things about lots of people, and you can find small amounts of people to say negative things about people. When I list like Dexter or Phil, that's not to pick on Dexter or Phil. They may have burned some bridges along the way, and you find someone who might say something negative about them. But I asked Dan, find me one person in this sport in 20 years who can say one negative thing about Shawn Rhoden. You cannot. Literally.
Yeah, you're right. Look, I'm sure Shawn was also no saint, but when it came to bodybuilding,
what do you mean? No, Dave. I mean, what's that mean?
It means that no one's perfect, Chris. What I'm saying, what you're saying is, in the bodybuilding world, he gave so much to it that the people in the world that he touched have nothing bad to say about him. We don't know what he does outside of the sport. Inside the sport,
I'm saying in the sport of bodybuilding,
yes,
find me one person in 20 years that has something negative to say. A competitor say, you know what, I don't like Shawn because X. Find me one person.
Well, the ex-girlfriend posted something, on I don't want to go into it. It's not worth it.
Oh my God, Dave. I'm saying relationships. Just people.
I'm talking about you're talking bodybuilding. You're talking bodybuilding. He was a positive influence in the bodybuilding world. That's what you're talking.
Personal life. I probably could ask your wife, and she'll say something negative about you.
Of course she will. She'll say I'm a moron.
So you can drag in him, whatever, his relationships.
But there's
a line between a relationship, people's personal lives. Yeah. And what they put out there publicly. So in the bodybuilding world, I mean, Lee Haney's wife may say something about him. We don't know if some other Mr. Olympia may have cheated on his wife.
Yeah,
we're not talking about gossip from the National fucking Enquirer.
You're talking about
relationships.
You're talking about the
relationship between any promoter, any athlete, anyone who's come across Shawn Rhoden and Shawn Rhoden. And you can't say that. You can say that maybe Shawn, maybe
John
Meadows, Jay, Coleman. Everyone's had a bad day and they've screwed it up somewhere. So I'm not talking about I'm not talking about intimate relationships and shit.
Right.
I'm talking about where people are in their lives, how they treat.
You said it right in the beginning. Hold on.
They are.
You said it in the beginning, Chris. You said Shawn loved bodybuilding. So because he loved it so much, if you asked him for advice or you went up to the guy, he would never blow you off because he liked talking bodybuilding. That's what he wanted to do all the time. And that's why he was such a positive influencer on bodybuilding, because you could tell he had a pure love for the sport. Like I always sense, even Flex Wheeler said this in interviews. He said, he hated training and, he wasn't like the guy who would love bodybuilding when he competed. I think he appreciated it more after he retired. It was almost like, it became too much of a job for Flex. But Shawn it was never like that for Shawn. Shawn always just, you can tell he exuded like a positive, no matter what was going on in his life, if you talk bodybuilding with him, it was like he was in another world, of happiness. And very few people have something that they love that much in their life.
Yeah. Same. Yeah. I'll stop there before I keep aggressively pushing like the real problem.
Well, I know what you believe to be the real problem, and I agree with you. I think that it was terrible that he was abandoned. Especially being Mr. Olympia.
Well,
but isn't that what happens in life? We're in a cancel culture now, Chris. Everyone gets canceled. You say the wrong thing, all of a sudden you go from being the biggest star to being the biggest loser, right? Yeah, that's our society. It sucks. It's terrible.
It's followed up with prayers and condolences that really don't help person.
Everyone posts a picture of them with Shawn, right? That they think that that's going to make everyone, oh, look, you're friends with him. I have a picture with him. Oh, yeah, I took a picture with Shawn Rhoden. That's life, Shawn. I'm Chris. People are phonies. You know that. But we live, it's sick. It's sad. I hate it. We live in this cancel culture that you cannot say what's on your mind anymore, because if God forbid you slip up and say something that offends one person, they're ready to shut you down. They're ready to cancel you. Shawn got canceled, basically. That's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it started with Pecker,
Yeah, he canceled Shawn. And all the sheep followed. That was the problem, because everyone was afraid. That's our society we live in. It's a sad statement, but it really is. You like it or not, people are afraid they're afraid to say anything about COVID or the vaccine, because they're afraid they're going to be shut down their social media channels. People are living in fear. And the fear is being fostered by our society.
People have always lived in fear. It's
worse now.
That's what creates stress. Yeah, it is worse now, but it's nothing new. But you're right. It's worse now because people have it's worse now. I would agree with you.
And now you got all these guys who weigh 140 pounds and want to be Mr. Olympia, but have no genetics to do it. And they're saying, you see, it's the steroids that kill these guys, right? All these guys, it's the steroids. Palumbo won't address it. It's the steroids that killed these guys. How come everyone isn't dead if it's the steroids that killed these guys? Come on, guys. To take one variable and say that that's the reason why this person's dying or that person's dying, it's idiotic. It's moronic. You have to be an imbecile to fucking endorse that idea. Is it a contributing factor? Of course it could be, especially if there's a predisposed, condition there, combined with other factors. But to say one variable is causing, bodybuilders to all of a sudden die when they could have died, why weren't they dying years ago too? Is ridiculous. But it is worth acknowledging that there is risk factors involved with taking anabolic steroids, and that there are things. I just went through a whole litany of things you can do to protect yourself and to make sure that your health is good, and supplements to take to help alleviate some of the issues that could be, compounding. That's all you can do. That's what life's about. It's about minimizing risk. Okay. If you want to achieve something great in life, you got to do extreme things. That's just the way it is. And there are healthy and unhealthy ways of going about doing extreme things. And so people have to be aware of that. If you're going to do that route or take that route, you have to make sure you know what you're doing. Don't just go in with your eyes closed and think, oh, I'll just find my way in the dark. No, you won't. You'll probably get lost. Mm-hmm. That's what happens to a lot of people. But let's move on to something else, because like I said, we're going to do a big tribute show to Shawn later in the week. I don't want to make the show a Debbie Downer show. We did have a pro show in Prague this past week, Chris. Samson Dauda wins his first pro show, qualifies for the Olympia. Did you? I know you looked at the footage and you had a few horses in that race. Talk to me about what you liked about Samson Dauda.
Shape, flow, pecs.
Let's play some video here.
He's always had great. Just it has nice flow, nice clean lines, big pecs. That's good vacuum. I had him second.
Now, yeah, I wanted to ask you that.
You're going to tell. Look at this video.
I looked at the run through
the video. Don't go through the scorecard, because that's someone's opinion. Go through what I'm asking you. Go through this video. Start it from the beginning.
I really liked Regan Grimes.
Yeah.
Although it seemed as though I think he got worse at night, because he went from being like in second to going to like third place. So I didn't see that. I think this is prejudging footage you sent me.
Yeah.
I liked Regan a lot. I loved Rafa Brandeo. I think that conditioning wise, I think he probably was the best there. And I think that, he has a lot of really great body parts. His back double bicep is crazy looking.
It's so funny when you can emphasize condition in the back double, which has traditionally been the two bellwethers of what wins shows, right?
I know. Well, that's what I look for. When I try to differentiate, because these guys were pretty close. It was a pretty good show. You have to admit, it was not a runaway for anyone. No. It was a very, very tightly matched top four, and it made it very hard, I think, for the judges. And I think that you have to say to yourself, well, what's going to determine this? And I always go to the back double, and I say to myself, who wins the back double? And I just think Rafa had the best back double there. Nathan obviously was all the way on the right there, is just too smooth here. So he takes himself out of it, because he could have won the show if he was in shape. Samson Dauda's got a lot of bells and whistles, but he's a little shallow, to me at least, in the back double, especially his lats. I don't see the thickness there. And Regan looked really good. I thought, I would have had him probably second. I probably would have had Rafa. Him and Rafa, but I guess Regan got worse at night and Samson got better. And I could have had Rafa winning this show. I'm wondering, I know Samson Dauda has done a lot of shows recently, and I wonder if he got rewarded because he had so many second, third places. Sometimes they throw you a bone.
Yeah, I think maybe
This is the only pose I think he's vulnerable in, really, because he's shallow in his back. He doesn't have the depth in the lats and the when he hits. He's wide in the lats, Red, but even then you can see it's kind of like a flat width.
He don't have the glutes and hams that Reagan have too.
No, I thought Regan and Brandeau's conditioning was superior. But he looks from the front and the sides, he's got some like I said, some nice bells and whistles there, and I think that wows the judges sometimes when they see that. And
I mean, I wasn't there either. I'm just going by that video, which was pretty clear. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it really doesn't tell the whole picture. So
I say to myself, when I see this lineup, I'm like, these guys are the smartest 4 guys in the IFBB, because you know what, all it would have taken was one guy from the top 6 at the Olympia to hit all these European shows, and they would have been cleaning house. Meanwhile, Regan's going to the Olympia now. And you got Sampson going to the Olympia. All these guys, Nathan, they all qualify. They're all making money. They're super popular. It's great for them. I think it's a great thing. I don't know what happened to Nathan. I don't know if maybe he was holding water from traveling or his body's just tired. But I mean, aside from being a little off, it was a really good top 4. And think about it. This top 4 was so good that Ruli Winkler had to settle for 5th place here.
Yeah, it was. I mean, good. It was a great top 4, and I think probably Nathan was just spent.
That's what I think too.
I mean, you can always. I've always said it. I mean, I mistakenly did it this year with people, but it's hard to do. It's hard to do more than 2 shows. So 3 shows.
And the traveling, Chris, is you got to factor that in too.
It's the traveling, and then you never know. After a show, Nathan can go out and eat a pizza, and one day he does it after the first show, and he actually looks better the next day, and then the next 2 weeks later he does a show, let's say, and he eats a pizza on a Sunday night, and on Tuesday he's so off it's ridiculous. It's like he ate 100 of them. So you never know.
Yeah.
Because the body, it changes. So to me, he looked surprisingly just not himself here, and I didn't know if it was flat, watery, tired, but not his usual, popping self.
And then we have Romania next week, right?
Yeah.
And I think Regan's in that one too, right?
Yeah, I think it's the same group.
It's funny that Milos is helping, Regan now, because Milos was the king of going to every show, right? Especially the European tour. He loved that.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Milos has got all his protocols.
That's why. Listen.
Milos pulled out his book. He pulled out that book from the European tour when he was on. He's like, look at this.
Milos Sarcev has photos of every all-time great where he probably beat, because at some point Milos was disciplined enough. If they did 10 shows after the Olympia, this is true. Wheeler would get to show number 8 and say, I'm just eating pizza every day. I'm just not doing it anymore.
Lee Priest was doing that after 2 shows.
Yeah, and Milos would be doing, an hour of cardio, whatever. He'd be
chicken breast,
100% on the money on his diet. So by, show number 8, he'd be killing Flex, and that's why he's got all those pictures. There's me, Flex Wheeler, and people are like, "You're killing him here." As I know, I beat him. Nasser, right? He beat everybody.
Yeah.
He's beaten everyone at one time or another.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Kevin or
because he had the endurance to last through the whole tour. Yeah, but that's like Regan. Regan it seems like he's holding on really well. I'm super impressed. With what he's doing, and think about it. He's really the only American in that lineup, Chris. No one else flew over there at all.
He's Canadian, but go ahead.
Well, whatever, that's Canadian.
Dave just wanted, same.
He's coming from North America. It's the same thing.
If we wanted to take over Canada, our military, we could do it in a week. So it doesn't matter. Anyone we can take over within a week, we can.
But you know what I'm saying? No one else is flying over there and doing these shows. Most of these guys are coming from the UK or Spain or wherever. So. You got to take your hat off to Regan for sucking it up, flying over there, staying over there, and doing what he's got to do. I mean, it's great when you're young, you have no responsibility, you can do that, but he's making a lot of good connections. I'm telling you, that it's a very, very smart move on his part.
Yeah, no, he looked. I actually liked this look too that he had at the show. He looked even, rounder. then I think
he's getting better. Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's getting better, from show to show, which is a miracle, when your body does get tired. 212. What'd you think of Ahmad Ashkenani?
second place.
You didn't think he deserved first, huh?
Not even close.
You like that Ukrainian guy? Oh, look.
I don't like him. I just thought that he was. I mean, did you put up that video? Holy
I'm looking for it. Where is it? Do you know where that video is?
I don't know, but if you find that, I mean, I'll put on my worst glasses and figure out who won the show.
Oh, they're funny.
I mean, Ashkenani looked good in certain shots, but I think, if you're not beating someone, if you're not dominating them, if you're not beating them, you're not beating them. So you have to have shots where, if you have weaknesses, which Ashkenani does, he has no legs, no leg separation, rather. He has good legs from the side. So if you're not beating him, there's other shots that you have to actually destroy him on, and I didn't see that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you can't, it's a sum total of all the parts. That's why people love Brandeo. Is he the biggest? No, but he's big enough. You know what I mean? Does he have great separation? Is there flow? Where's his weak shot? Oh, he doesn't have any. Okay, good. So that puts him close to the top on a show like this. But I'm just using Brandeo because I help him. But if Brandeo was here and Rolly was a little sharper, Rolly would overwhelm him on the side chest and the most muscular. And even if he was soft on the other shots, you'd say, okay, Rolly first, right? Why? Because he's just so muscular.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that, in the 212s. I thought that, I thought that, again, I mean, I'm not there, but, videos is not, we're not in like the 1960s with video.
Yeah. I don't think they had a live stream, did they? I didn't see it.
I don't think so.
What did you think of did you look at the classic physique guys?
I took a quick look, but it wasn't a deep lineup, so I didn't
Ruben Lopez Reyes from Spain wins. That I'm trying to figure if I can find a picture of him. I think I've been to Prague. You've been to Prague too.
Beautiful.
I'm assuming it's the same people running it.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah,
they put a lot of money into that show.
They do. They do.
They spare no expense. It's if you're an athlete, it's a great show to do. Believe it or not, because they really do give these guys the red carpet treatment. I know the guy who runs the show's got some money, and he puts it in there, and he doesn't worry about making money on the show. And you got to take your hat off to promoters that do that, because there's not a lot of promoters that will hold a show and lose money. Jake Wood is probably the only other guy who'll do that.
Yeah,
because he just loves the sport.
I'd say these promoters are. I looked at that prize money, $4,000. It's kind of a joke, right, for the 212. But the promoters, I said this last week, they're in a tough spot. I mean, it's probably
tough now. It's tough because no one's coming to see these shows, Chris, because they have so many restrictions.
Well, I mean, there's restrictions. There's the you can watch this channel, and if we wanted to do a huge breakdown on it from people's Instagram photos from the show, we could do it if we wanted to.
Yeah.
I used to go to that show. I went with Sean.
I remember. I was there too. We were there
2013, 2014.
Yeah.
I went there with Sean. Funny story for people. Since I'm in a bad mood, I can throw people under the bus. I went there in 2014 or 15, or let's see. Kai Green was in the show.
Right.
And he looked like an utter disaster. Sometimes you just miss your peak by miles.
I remember that show.
And the head judge, who was, they had to get rid of him because he was going to take the whole league down with Lee Thompson. Lee kick Cedric out of Prague. I mean, kick Cedric out of Brazil, Thompson. But he found Jesus, so he told me that Cedric forgave him, and I said no, he didn't. He was too embarrassed. He was just too embarrassed to tell you to go to hell. He was too embarrassed to tell you to go to hell when you told him.
Yeah, he cost him Bud like 40 grand, right? Something like
Yeah. Lee Thompson was judging, and Lee Thompson had Kai in the middle. And Lee Thompson, after the pre-judging, was in the hotel lobby trying to tell people how great he looked. And people in the lobby were getting like violent. They're like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? I don't want to say names. Some really respectable IFBB pros, not even in the show. They're like yelling at him. What are you talking about that he's in first place? He said, look great. He was full. And then I don't know what happened. Kai, the next thing you knew that he pulled out of the show.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I remember. That's right. Yeah, I forgot.
That was the big controversy.
Yeah.
But he had him in first.
No, the big controversy. I arrived in 2012. If you remember, and they told me that we don't have any press passes for you or something like that. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Remember that's when I think Robin Chang was running the show at that point, and they're like, they were pretending like they didn't know who we were. I'm like, what do you think? I flew here for my health to just come watch this, to pay for a ticket, watch the show. Yeah. I had to actually go to Rafael Santoja, who at the time was the IFBB president. And I said, he's like, what's the matter? Because I used to do interviews with him. And I told him the whole story. He snapped his fingers and all of a sudden press passes appeared. And everything was all right. But I'm so happy that they got rid of all those people that were in there, Chris. Now that Jim Mannion has full reign over everything and Weinberg is at these shows, nothing ever goes wrong anymore. You notice that? We don't hear any controversies at these shows anymore.
But when he's there, there's no drama.
No, because they take care of it. Because if Steve was there and something was going wrong, and I went up to Steve, it would be instantly taken care of. That would be the end of it. There would be nothing to talk about anymore. Now that Dan runs the Olympia, have you seen one argument, fight, anything? No. Nothing. Everyone's happy. It's kumbaya. No. Everyone's like fucking having a great time.
Yeah. Well, to go back and I was surprised, but not surprised. That show, I thought Rafa could have won. I thought Reagan could have won. I thought Sampson could have won. But at the end of the day, Steve was judging. I'm like, I wasn't there. I mean, usually he makes a call. That's pretty much what I would say is the call if I was there.
Right. Steve had Rafa and Sampson in the middle. So now it's a matter of whether the other judges, I don't know who else was judging. Yeah. Steve doesn't even get a vote at that point.
Listen, I've been there.
He lines them up. The judges vote. I mean, I don't know what they were looking at. I mean, it was close. All the guys were good. Like I said, I thought Regan probably should have been higher, but I didn't see him at night. So, I mean, he might have gotten a little softer at night. I don't know.
Who knows?
The great thing is that they get all face off against each other next week, right?
Next week, they'll either be tighter or the chance of being tighter.
My only knock against Rafa was that his tan was terrible.
Yeah, terrible.
I mean, if he fixed, and you know what? I tell this to people all the time. You could lose shows with a bad tan. It happens. It doesn't matter, because you just don't look as good. You don't.
Yeah.
If he would have been dark, I think he would have won the show. I really do.
Yeah.
I think it would have been game over because you sent me pictures of him. But I don't know the day
before. Crazy, yeah.
With no tan, white as a ghost. I was like, this guy cannot lose this show. There's no way he's going to lose the show. But the lighting was good, and it was the tan. Just sometimes having no tan is better than having like a weird tan that doesn't really, because you kind of get this orangey yellow look when the tan is not dark enough, and it actually makes you look worse.
Totally agree.
So. That could have been the case. But.
He sent me some pictures, Dave, that you can't make this stuff up. We'll have a good time, I think, when we do the Rhoden tribute show. But Raphael sent me I'm thinking of Sean. Raphael sent me pictures. He looked like black as my cell phone. Right. And I said, "What tan is that?" He told me it's going to be perfect because you wash it off. And I'm thinking like, it doesn't make sense to me. The logic is you get really dark and then you wash it off. Why not? Why can't you just have a tan that just tans and you can see it? So, but
what? One of the things that guys don't do anymore that they did back in our day, Chris, was that they actually tanned
Yeah.
Guys, get a base tan before you
helps.
go and get spray tan, so that if the spray tan doesn't quite look as dark as it needs to be, you got something under there at least. If you go in there pale as a ghost and you get sprayed, now it's a crapshoot. If the stuff runs off, you got nothing under there.
Yeah.
It's like a wall. You don't, you know, if you have a black wall and you want to put white paint on it, you just don't put one coat of white paint. You have to put undercoats and stuff like that, so that if, God forbid, the paint scratches off a little bit or it gets rubbed off, you don't have black showing through. So it's the same. It's the opposite with tan. You got to have a base tan. You got to have some darkness under there.
Dave, just so many little snippets like this. Like, people contacted me so much today, so many people, and Raphael as well. And Raphael said, "Do you remember?" Which I didn't. He said Shawn won the 2000. He won the Olympia, and Raphael was getting ready for the Arnold.
Mm-hmm.
And he went to Gold's Gym, first time in California, whole thing. He's like, "Oh, there's Shawn Rhoden." He's too afraid to go and say hello, Shawn Rhoden, or wave to him or whatever. And of course, he was training in the gym, and Shawn spotted him and said, "Yeah, you've got a great physique." And Raphael was, so excited, and he said,
Yeah.
"Let me see what you look like." And he, show those shoulders and arms, like lift up the shirt. And he said,
Right,
no, take off all your clothes. I want to see what you look like. And he took off all his clothes. They took a picture of it, and he posted it today.
Oh, really?
I said, Raphael, the irony is, he said, Raphael asked me if I remembered that, and I screenshotted a text. It was a few days before Raphael was leaving from Brazil to go to the show.
Wow.
And Shawn's text said, "Good luck. Tell Raphael good luck." Shawn kept tabs on so many people this way. You can ask people in just so many divisions. Shawn kept the tab on them. And I'm like, what? How does this guy have the time to do? It's like a Bob Gruskin. When Bob Gruskin knew people's birthdays and this and that, and
right.
like when the contest.
He just loved bodybuilding that much, though, right? He was a fan. Loved it.
Yeah, I would go around with people. I can't tell you how many times I've run into people and they said, "Oh, hey, Chris, I'm so and so." I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "I talked to Shawn for like 30 minutes after I got third in the Junior USA." I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, he was guest posing and he saw me and he came up to me and asked me how I did, and I told him I didn't do well, and Shawn's Shawn's got the Jay speeches, and Shawn's got he's got speeches like Jay. They're so genuine, but they're just, they're uplifting, and he knows how to support people.
Right.
And he knows how to be there for people, and everyone. And you'll hear on the show what we do on Tuesday, of the support that he gave people. And that's just, even people who you think didn't like him, he provided support for. I'll tell you off the air, Dave, actually. It's too personal to tell on air because that's his personal stuff.
Yeah.
But, he really had a way to uplift people when they were down. And the irony is the sport didn't uplift him when he was down.
Yeah. Well, I think he was, the good thing about Shawn was, even though he was a genetic freak, it didn't come easy to him. So the fact that he had to really, work and overcome a lot of obstacles to get to that Olympia throne made him have more compassion for the process. Nothing against Phil Heath, because Phil Heath was just a genetic freak who pretty much, went right to the top pretty quickly. Even before he won the Olympia, and he lost, he wasn't winning pro shows initially. He won a couple, but he knew he was going to win the Olympia. I mean, it was like he was like the prophesized child that was going to take the throne, so to speak. So he didn't really have to experience that much toiling and overcoming of obstacles, and he just kind of coasted through.
I told you when the first day Jay met Phil, right?
Yeah, I read that show. He told him. Called you, right?
He called me. He said, "I met a young kid who's an exact replica of Wheeler and LeBron." I mean, can you get better than that? Crazy, right?
But think about it. It took Shawn till he was 44 years old to win the Olympia? 43. I mean, that's to have that kind of mindset. Hey, I know I'm going to win this Olympia, and keep going at 43 years old and look your absolute best at 43. I mean, that just shows you he had a lot of heart, you know. And that's why he had compassion for the process, because it wasn't easy for him, even though he had the tool set, you know.
Well, let me ask you this, Dave. Go into mental stress. These are not shots against individuals. They're just facts. Had he competed at 19, would he have beaten Brandon?
It's a good question.
No, I'm looking for the answer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Oh my God, can you imagine the mental, you know, just the angst? You know, there's the angst that creates. You know, you're in the audience broke, and you just beat all these guys last year, and you're in the audience, and you're watching the show, and you're thinking like, well, how's this work?
Chris, it's even worse than that. You're broke. You're in the audience. They're not letting you do your craft, and you have a rape charge that is hanging over your head. Whether it's true or not, we'll never know what happened. But there was a court case that was going to take place to decide the fate of his life, and whether he's going to spend the next 10 to 15 years in jail. So that stress is something that no one could even understand. I can't understand it, you know. And I had a little stint in Club Fed there for 5 months. Just that stress alone was unbelievable, not knowing. So I can't even imagine what he must have been feeling, and how he went to the gym and functioned on a daily basis is a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
Miracle, really. But everyone has their own trials and tribulations, I guess, they got to go through. It's a shame, you know, we lost a really good one in Shawn Rhoden, and we send our prayers, condolences out to his family and friends and fans. And like I said, on Tuesday, we're going to do a very good tribute show. Be sure to stay tuned. I'm going to try to do this live so that people can kind of interact and the fans can ask questions. It's Shawn deserves 10 tribute shows, really, to be honest with you. But hopefully we'll do it justice. Chris, thank you for joining us. I know this was a tough one for you, and this was a tough show to do. So I appreciate you doing it and being so honest with us and the way you feel about it.
You're welcome.
There's one thing before we go that you would like people to know and remember about Shawn Rhoden.
Pure heart.
Just speak from your heart. Just tell us what would that be?
Pure heart.
What do you mean by that?
You know, there's givers and takers in the world, you know, and there's people in between. I saw Shawn do things. Shawn was a giver. He's a giver of his time, which is huge. It's the only commodity you really have when you're over 45. You know, time becomes extremely important. I saw Shawn remarkably generous with time. I saw Shawn generous with money with other bodybuilders, people who could not get to shows. Shawn supported them to get to shows, such as buying plane tickets, providing hotel room. I saw Shawn, we'll see on Tuesday. Shawn was a mentor to many, many people, which means they looked up to him, but he spoke to them on not a higher level than he spoke to them on equal levels. Like, I'm no better than you. I came through this, you know, I came up the same way through the NPC that you did. If I can do it, you can do it. You know, he always had his fantastic pep talks that were not corny, but they were very genuine, and they were about losing. Because he would tell people that I've competed in lots and lots of shows where I lost, and lots of shows where I was sure I was going to be the winner, and I did not win. And we all lose. And how to he would help people understand that losing is only a stepping stone to winning, so long as you know how to lose appropriately. And a lot of people could not get that, but some people could understand that. You know, since this is a raw show, right? For me, you know, I helped Patrick Moore at the Olympia. and he was 10th or 11th, 12th, whatever. And I told him, who you want to talk to? There's only 2 people to call for advice. Because you can listen to all the morons who don't know what they're talking about, or you can talk to people who've been there. One would be Dexter, and one would be Shawn,
Really
because they're the go-to people who have walked the walk, who can give you good advice. Yeah. Crazy Cedric. They put him next to Wolf, and they had to look. I know the show. Pause it. Pause it. Watch. Pause it. Yep. This is what a memory I have of bodybuilding. This show was between Shawn
and Wolf.
And they mistakenly moved Cedric over. And watch Cedric.
He was huge.
They moved him so fast out of there. That's Cedric's words. He said, man, when they put me next to Dennis, and they realized, move him, get him out of there. Watch your shot. Watch how good a memory I have of this. Watch how crazy. Watch Cedric in this shot. And they'd say, Cedric don't have hamstring and glutes. Look at the hamstrings and glutes. Look at the back.
I thought Cedric was going to win the show. Look at that back double. That was crazy. I actually thought Shawn should have won the show. But
yeah.
That's crazy, right?
Anyhow.
Well, I appreciate the honesty. And you know what? Shawn did have a great heart. And every time I ever sat down and broke bread and had dinner with him or a meal with him, he was always super laid back, cool, talk about anything. And it was a pleasure to really have him in my life and to call him a friend. So, all right, guys, stay tuned. Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard. We're going to have a great tribute show to Shawn. For now, we're out of time, as we say every week here at Heavy Muscle Radio. With Heavy Muscle Radio,
the truth does hurt.
It does. Good night, everyone.